So hopefully the connection stays pretty good today. We had to separate out because of the storm
Right.
and all that.
I can hear it
But
outside here. I don't know whether it's the
yeah,
wind or thunder. Something's
a
keep.
lot of thunder. My yard's already flooded out again.
Is it?
Yeah, it's not good. Not
No.
good.
Well,
So, but anyway, we got a couple people chiming in already. Hello, how's everybody doing? Good to see you again. Um, I got to say that when I put up the stuff, I put it up in a rush, and I put the wrong episode number on the
wait a
graphic.
minute.
So
Let me
I'm
get
gonna
my
have to go
water
back
here.
and
See?
change that.
Yeah. Episodic. What episode is this anyway?
Technically, we're on now episode 37.
Holy mackerel!
Yeah, man, we've been
A
doing
lot of
this for
talking.
a lot of talking, 37 plus hours, right? So anyway, we're back at this, and with the convention theme going on, we've been talking a lot about comics and stuff like that. And I as we get going here, I want to mention that we still have the sale going on for the Marvel cover art prints. I put a link to those prints in the description for the video. So if anybody wants to go there and purchase a print, it is signed by Greg. Um, you'll find that link again in the description of this video. So, sir, we're talking about blackboards. A couple a
Yes.
couple weeks ago, when we were flipping through the Marvel art book, we got to the image of, I think, Shang-Chi, right?
Right.
And who was on a blackboard, right? It's a blackboard done in grayscale colored pencil. And someone, I think Adrian Wagner, who's a regular, chimed in saying that she loves the blackboards, wanted to hear more about them, and what a perfect time to do it, right? As we're talking about comic books and blackboards.
That's the one there, right? Yeah.
Yep, that's the one. That's the one. And I see you've got a Daredevil one behind you, but
Yeah.
that one has color on it.
Right. Here I put paint on it. I did this on its black illustration board. Then I transfer the drawing onto that, and then throw paint at the board. Just that loose, big, get all that splotch type effect, kind of blood
Yep.
splattering. And then I go over with the white Prismacolor pencils and black Prismacolor pencils, and it's kind of an interesting effect. I like to use a single color. Generally, red works the best on this. You know.
Now, before I want to step back in time to how you got started, but before we do that, because we're specifically talking about that Daredevil there, you said you splattered red acrylic paint on it first.
Yeah.
Now, are, is that paint getting thick in any area?
A little bit, not much though. I mix up a right consistency. I put the board on the floor, you know, like Jackson Pollock,
Okay.
throwing paint at the floor, and figure the angle of the splash you want. High because you got one shot at it. That's all you got. So it's got to come out
Yeah.
right. And which way do you want the paint to be moving? In this case, I I laid it on the floor and threw it this way. You can see the paint shoots that way, and then just leave it. Don't touch it. Don't fool around with it. Don't try to mess with it at all. Because if you go in and squiggle with it, it'll screw it all up. You want that natural blast kind of like thing.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
let it dry, and then transfer the picture on top of that, and then in this case, I let that stuff show through him. Some of them I've kind of like made a mask that I put down onto the blackboard of the figure, and put that down onto the board, and then splash the paint so that the figure is solid. There's no paint underneath of the figure, and it depends on what you're after.
Okay.
You know, and
So,
it's fun.
but
It's a different approach.
when you draw over that acrylic paint, does that create any issues with your colored pencil, or is it thin enough onto the board where it doesn't?
Well, you can get it on. You can't get it straight white like here. you can see here, it's probably about like a 20% gray. And then you can see the edge light, all the white, that's paint. That's white paint to get the really, white. But you don't really get a solid, white color. Even without the paint, you'll end up with, like a 20% gray, literally. If you want the real final white highlights, I go over that with white paint.
Got you. All right, so let's step back in time. And how did you get started in doing these blackboards?
Well, it really started with these Marvel jobs. Back here, I kind of like was joking with myself that I've never done black velvet art, which you could laugh about that and say, oh yeah, black velvet art, but I still haven't tried it, but I imagine it's quite a thing to achieve because you can't make any mistakes. Once you put that paint on the black velvet, it's there. So you're right.
Could it be said that as soon as you put paint on black velvet, that is a mistake?
People may have said that kind of thing, but I would never make such a judgment. I'm sure there's some beautiful black velvet art. I'm no expert on the matter, but anything can be pulled off very well, no matter what the hell it is, right? So,
True.
But I mean, I was kind of like, Joe, geez, I've done this, I've done that, I've done all this. I've never done black velvet art. Well, wait a minute. How about a black illustration board with black paint or black pencil on it? That's kind of like, let's try that. So that's how that evolved. And I did one of these Marvel pictures like that back in the '90s whenever these cards all came up. And then everybody liked the way it looked, so Tim and I did a whole series of them. That's kind of like how it started. Sort of like just joking about it, A lot of stuff I think starts that way with me. I'm kind of like kidding about something, trying something, and then I try it. Hey, well, there. I tried it. It's something different,
And so how many blackboard illustrations then did you do for Marvel? Do you remember?
Oh God, I don't remember. The thing is, too, we do other kinds, only in Marvel. Here, I did this portrait of Jean, her mother, and her brother. Some time ago, and that's all. Again, the pencils with a little bit of color, and the whitest areas are like white paint. So, but I do these commissions also for people, private commissions for, not only portraits of them, but whatever they want.
Okay, yeah, we'll get into that because that's like become a whole subgenre of your work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I want to finish up talking about this Marvel stuff first.
Okay.
That's the beginning of the evolution, right?
Yes.
Now, were the blackboards part of that Marvel Masterpieces set, or did they come later, or were they an expansion set? Like what? How did those come into play?
Geez, I'm kind of. Jane, do you remember how the blackboards came? Check with Jane, the expert. Generally, she'll remember this stuff. Jane?
Yeah, how the blackboards what?
Was that a whole subset, or what was it?
Marvel wanted a subset, a special subset of 6 or 8 cards for a Spider-Man set for Fleer.
Marvel wanted
Okay,
Spider-Man set. He can hear me.
Can you hear that?
He can hear me. And they wanted to know if Greg could do something different. And I had remembered that in the Sword of Shannara, Greg and Tim painted black and white paintings.
That's right.
Which I thought were fabulous, absolutely fabulous, which I adored. And so I asked him to do some black and white paintings. And he said he would rather try something else with the Prismacolor pencils. He uses actually 10 different shades of grays, and then pure white pencil, and then acrylic paint on top of the board. And so that's how they, came to be. And we actually started, I'll tell you exactly when we started them, was in the recession of 2007, I think it was, 7, 8, whenever that recession hit, because I suggested that we find a way to create a finished, beautiful piece of art for fans that were significantly less than full paintings, because once the recession hit, a lot of people were no longer able to buy an acrylic. And so he started doing half boards, and then he went
What do
to
you mean
full
by
board.
half board?
So the blackboards themselves, when we buy them, they're 20 by 30 inches. And
Cut it in
so
half.
he started doing 15 by 20 inch boards. That's a half board. And, so he does both sizes now still, depending on the price range you're in. You get a half board, you get a full board. You get
Yeah.
a single character with a black background, you can get a single character with full black background. You can add characters, you can go bigger, but the biggest you go is 20 by 30. Have I answered your question?
Bada bunch.
Yeah, so that was you got into that then several years after you had done them for the Marvel cards. Then is that correct?
Yeah.
There was some
Oh,
there
yeah,
was
yeah.
some time.
Time went by, and then we went back to it. Kind of like,
Yeah.
say, wait a minute, and that's right. I remember as Gene mentioned, that we did black and white paintings for the Sword of Shannara for Judy Lynn and Lester Del Rey for their book with Terry Brooks back in the 70s. But that was paintings. That was not. That was painted on illustration board on masonite. Gessoed masonite. I didn't paint the panel all black first. I just started from a white surface painting. Now
Gotcha.
I even with paintings now, once I started this black board and put the drawing on top of that, I started doing paintings that way by painting the canvas all black. And so that gives me my darkest dark. And now I just put, once I mix the color up, say for if I'm painting a city at night, you mix the color up for a light, and you put it on that black surface. Instantly, you get a lighting effect already.
Yeah.
So
Has that affected? I'm trying to do a mind comparison. From a night scene that you've painted, starting with a white canvas, versus a night scene that you start on black. Do you find that it affects the end result and the look at all? Like maybe there's more black than there would have been?
I don't know. I mean, that's a good question. I never really thought about it. I'm not compared them. I don't think about it. I'm not getting any thought. It's for me. Actually, what it comes down to for me, it's a way that I can see the lighting better. I think what you do, I kind of like you're driven to, is probably making colors stronger to read on the already existing black surface.
Yep.
So
I got a side question here. Well, I guess it relates to the Sword of Shannara. Cole C wants to know if do you still have any of the original Sword of Shannara art? He says those illustrations are iconic. Are they all sold out? Are they available? Do you have any?
Oh, they've been going for a long time, I believe. Yeah. Gene, we don't have any more Sword of Shannara art, do we? Finishes?
No, we do.
No, we do not. Those all disappeared a long time ago. That was a really fast. What?
We have a new nickname for Gene. Gene Hildepedia.
Gene Hildepedia. That's a nickname that somebody's giving you, Gene. That's her. Gene's got the memory for all this stuff.
That's right. She always jumps in for clarity. Gene Hildepedia.
I find painting in black and white no different than painting in color because I'm always thinking in terms of values. Light against dark, dark against light, even with color. You're thinking about values. Light to dark, dark to light,
Now, with thinking of the same way, I mean, the only thing I think, correct me if I'm wrong, that you would take out of the equation is the risk of bumping two colors up against each other that would create a mud.
Right. Yeah. That
shade.
you don't have. You don't run into that problem at all. Hey, let's be honest about it. It's a lot easier to paint in black and white than it is to paint in color. Easy. I mean, it's far less complex. Obviously, painting in color is a very complex process. You really have to make sure that everything is thought through very clearly ahead of time, and sometimes I'll do a color comp. I just did a comic graphic art cover for Matt Medney for Heavy Metal, a graphic novel he's working on, the CEO of Heavy Metal, and it's a fantastic experience. And that's a very complex lighting setup. There's several lighting setups of a lot of business going on. Yeah, you really got to think that through ahead of time. And I did a color rough on that, very quick with colored pencils, just to kind of work it
Okay.
all out. So
Wow, that's so. I remember, I guess, several episodes now. I think we were talking about color comps,
yeah,
or maybe it was off. Maybe it was off the show, and you said you hadn't done it. You hadn't done one in a while.
I never did them at all, even from the beginning when Tim and I were doing the rings, and way before that, in our whole professional career going back to illustration, back to '69. I never did color comps. I mean, there was no time to do them. Let's be honest about it. That was what it came down to. You just had to figure it out as you went because you had to constantly. The amount of work we were doing and the deadlines just prohibited that. Sometimes, just for the sheer enjoyment of it, really, we started to do color comps. Just to say, oh, let me try this out. I'll play with this and see what it ends up like. It's more not like out of
Okay.
well, let me work. I don't like to do it per se necessarily because I like to be excited by the discovery of the color combinations as I proceed. As they say, shit
Okay.
happens. That
Yeah.
is all of a sudden. Whoa! I didn't figure that would happen.
So to go to, you're kind of already answering this, but we just he wrote this and it probably came in like right as we were starting to talk about it. But after you come up with a sketch for a painting project, how do you go about doing your color comps? Okay, so you said a lot of times you weren't doing them and then you started doing them for fun. I think the highest concentration of color comps I saw from you was probably from your pinup
Yeah,
series.
yeah. That was
Um,
early on, right at the beginning when I was starting them in 1999. I did a bunch of them for different setups. I tried. I remember there was one woman standing at a Venetian blind, and I wanted a green light coming through, and I wanted to see if that would work, how that would. So I did a
so
real
in
rough,
danger. Yeah.
yeah,
That's the name of the
and
painting, right? Danger.
yeah, and yeah. So I did a bunch of them back then, you know, but mainly for all the Marvel stuff that we did, I don't think we ever did any color comps at all. And
So correct if I'm understanding you correctly. Uh, so again, we'll just talk specifically about pinup because that's where you did the main concentration. Um, you already had the color scheme in your head and
Mhm.
just kind of wanted to see how it played out.
Right, yep,
Uh,
yeah,
in a very quick way.
right. You know that you paint. You got to figure out your colors ahead of time. The color, and that's all geared by what color is the light.
Yeah.
Like in other words, the colors of the objects in the setup that you're painting are all going to be affected by the color of the light. So it's mainly about figuring what color is the light that you want to use. That's really what it comes down to for me. You know, because if you can stand a figure there against in a background like that girl at the window. If I did it with a red light coming through the window, it would affect all the colors completely differently. You know,
Mhm.
so it's like what color is the light? Because we obviously when you're doing Marvel stuff or any other subjects that are already been created, everybody knows the colors of say their costumes. So
Yeah.
now you figure out, well, if I'm going to light that costume with a blue light, this this is going to happen. If I light it with a yellow light, this will happen. If I light it with a red light, this will happen. Or a green light, it's going to totally affect the color.
Right.
And it's like
And
how to work that all out so it doesn't turn to mud. In other words, you put a green light on a red costume, it's very tough. You can't light it frontally that way because it'll just turn to mud. You can't a green on light on a red surface will just get neutralized. So, but if you do it as a rim light, like say this Daredevil shot, you can paint that costume, if it was red, to start off with a bright green edge light, because that light is strong and by itself. But if you start to merge it with the front of the figure, it'll get muddy. So it's understanding all that kind of stuff, you know, how to position your lights in the scene, how to light the figure or the objects up to make sure that they're clearly lit by that particular light source, you know?
Yep. So let me ask you this question. If you were ever faced with the scenario that they act like an art director absolutely wanted that red costume, but with a green light on it,
Mm-hmm.
would you just say no?
No, I would say no.
Or,
I've never encountered that because I don't. No art directors.
Would you ever fake? Would you ever fake or fudge something, or could you fake or fudge it to make it look readable without it being mud?
I don't know. To try and see, I would doubt it. I think again, like I say, if this figure was all red, if there's the standard Daredevil costume, not the one in the TV series, this one, which is all black, right? But if it was red, and like I say, I'm gonna repeat myself. If you backlight it, like with the white light on that figure, you can make that green because it's a rim light. You see, it's not affecting the frontal light. But if I was to move that green light around on the figure, well, you destroy the purpose of the red. So it's pointless to light it with green light from that point of view. You know, can you hear the thunder?
Yeah, I don't know if you saw my room just went. It was the lightning that was.
Oh my God, the whole room is shaking.
Yeah.
Sounds like Mount Vesuvius going off. But but to answer the question, I've never, ever, ever had an art director give me directives about what color of light I should use. Ever.
Right.
Never gets down to that kind of detail, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, most of them, they know that the art directors I've always worked with pretty much know what Tim and I could handle or myself can handle, and they give it to me to do. And that's up to me to do that. I mean, you know?
Yeah.
It's like what is that? Somebody's going to ask a musical composer, I want this to be this at this point. Maybe a general draft. I want it to sound like Debussy at this point, or I want it to sound like Wagner at this point. They can say that, but you can't really get into the composer's, environment and start to construct the music for him or her.
Yeah. So I saw Jean chiming in over here in the comments, and she mentioned you recently did a Sword of Shannara Blackboard, right? As a commission painting or a commission piece, right?
It was a gift for Terry Brooks. Someone hired me to do a blackboard for Terry Brooks, a gift for Terry Brooks, the author cool. of Sword of Shannara.
Yeah, very cool.
Yeah.
And so that again, with what we're talking about with going from the Marvel cards, and then Gene bringing up the fact that you were looking for a way to, keep collectors engaged and looking for a way to make things a little bit more affordable for people, or, for people that can't necessarily afford
a full painting,
a full scale Hildebrandt, because I mean, let's face it, they go for some decent money. The blackboards are a great, not introductory level. The sketches and things like that is what I would think would be the introductory level. But the next step up for a beginning collector, or someone who was transitioning into the world of being a serious collector, a serious fan, they make they're very finished looking piece. You make that jump from a sketch to that blackboard, and it's a full finished illustration,
right?
That you're looking at.
Yeah, and they're very doable. I think in terms of for people to afford, and it's all about time for me. That's how Gene works it. How long does something take me? How complex is it? How much business is in it? What's going on in the image? How much stuff is in there? Obviously, the more stuff in there, the longer it takes. and especially when you run into any architectural stuff, buildings, say, and city scenes, which most of the Marvel universe is always like in cities, much of it anyway. Daredevil,
Yeah.
particularly, Hell's Kitchen and whatnot. Once you get into doing buildings, that's really time consuming. Architecture, perspective, windows. You start to kind of, my God, look at how many windows are in that picture. Oh my God, you know.
Yeah. Um, so do you have any idea how many of those things that you have done since you've started?
Those, you mean blackboards?
Yeah.
No, no. I mean, sure, they could be counted up, I guess, but I don't know. I never. I don't, no, I have no idea.
Yeah, you just machining, machine.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Um,
I mean, you get on, you work, and it gets done, and then that's that. On to the next thing. I've got like right now. I don't think there's any blackboards I'm working on at the particular moment. I've got a bunch of illustrations lined up that I'm working on for really interesting jobs that are coming up. But we'll talk about, as we get into the time,
yeah,
moves
cool.
along. And
Hey, can you do us a favor, Greg? Someone's saying that's a very cool Daredevil painting. Can you take it and can you hold it up a little closer
yeah,
to the camera so everybody can really see it? There you go.
I have to tilt it so the lights
Yeah,
don't.
tilt it to get the glare out of it. So, yeah, thank you. Appreciate that, Greg. And yes, Timo says that it's cool, and it is very cool.
Then I did this one when the movie came out. Gene suggested I should do this one, which is very, again, I splattered that paint, and I like the way I cut out that head shot of the Joker, just a piece of paper, and laid that down onto the paper, taped it down really, with and then threw the paint on it, and then I did the pencil very. You notice it's very sketchy. I wanted that really crazy looking kind of like drawing, like that. It wasn't really refined. You know what I'm saying?
Yes. Yeah, the pencil work is very what is the word? What, frenetic? Is that the word?
Yeah, kind of scratchy, like like he's drawing the picture, sort of like the Joker's trying to draw the picture.
Yes.
You're not finely rendering. Some of it you can really finely render, and when you finely render on this particular illustration board with those pencils, it has a look of stone lithography, which I'm sure most people probably don't know what the hell that is, but that's the way that a lot of movie posters, all the movie posters, magic posters, circus posters, all posters, products, renderings, labels on orange crate boxes, and you name it. They were all done with rendering with grease pencils on stone slabs and fine rend. You have these nice surface, about like the surface of an illustration board, a tooth of an illustration board. And
Yep.
so it has that look, which is a beautiful look. Stone lithography. It's got a very nice.
I agree. I've done some of that.
Yeah,
Oh,
that's a tough medium.
many years ago, and like the toughest thing was getting that stone sanded down evenly.
Yep.
Because if you got a
Right.
dip,
Forget about it.
does not print.
Well, no, it won't print. Right? You can't print. And I worked with a stone lithographer once on a portrait, and I won't get into the details of who or what, but a famous person. And my God, what I went nuts. I was like going crazy initially. I mean, because I never tackled a medium before, and you have to really, and this was going to be a 7-color poster, and so you have to transfer the same drawing 7 times on 7 stones, and you have to figure out this stone's going to contain the black ink that. So anything that's black in the picture has to be rendered on this stone. Over to this stone now, the skin. These are a big portrait shot. All the base, you have to come up with a basic skin tone, flat tone. That was all rendered on this stone. Then the next stone, you had to come up with a shadow color on the skin, which would be a separate color of ink now that the guy's going to print. You had to render just that shadow color on the next stone. Then you had to render the reds on the face, reds around the lips, around the nose, the ears, and the cheeks, and the eyes on the next stone. And they all had to register. It's mind-boggling. It can be done. I did it. I actually did it. But you think you can't do it. But if you're brand new at it, you walk into that job, you think this is impossible. And yet it was a method of reproduction that was common around the planet up until the Second World War. It was just the way they rendered it. There were guys, they were everywhere, just knocking out this stuff. Now it became a specialized art form. Now then it was just a commercial hack thing that you did to get stuff out there. Now there's I don't even know if this guy is still in existence, but he was out in California, and I understood at that time when I did this, 20-something years ago, there was only 3 guys in the country that could know how to do it or had a shop, because you had big slabs of stone, and they were like 3 by 3 foot, 4 by 4 foot, and you had forklifts that you had to move them around the shop with and lay them down and sit and render on. So it was quite an operation, Very interesting. It's a whole. I'm sure that there are probably documentaries on it somewhere. I've not seen any, but it is an interesting process.
Yeah, I took a class at West Virginia University back in like '96, something like that. And yeah, I mean the stones are thick.
Yeah,
and they're heavy. They're very I could see with that size needing a forklift. They're very heavy.
Oh God, it was like crazy. From what I remember, in the day when I was doing this, the stones were primarily quarried in Germany. That's where they got these particular kind. I forgot what kind of a stone it was. All that stuff's out of my head, but that's where they were quarried. And when you're done with the job, they wipe it off. See the way that reproduces. You remember, right? You render with a grease pencil, literally a black. So all those colors I said, you're rendering with black for each one of them. It's a black grease pencil, and the grease pencil is everything from a hard to a very soft grease pencil, and you render on the surface. When the job's all done, the lithographer just takes it and sands it all off, and and it's all over. You go back over again. But the way that the technical process worked was, say there's the grease on the stone that you've just rendered. He coats it with this acid stuff that eats everything away that isn't grease. The grease stays on the surface. The greased areas stay on the surface, and the rest of the stone gets eaten away very, very slightly, so that when you roll your ink on, big rollers roll the ink on the stone, and you stick it in your press and press down with a piece of paper, just those raised areas print. What a process. And you can only get a good image. I think there was something like 80, 90 times you could use that stone to get that single image out of it. And then it started to deteriorate. And that was just a general everyday reproduction process.
Yeah. Chris Cohen says, how heartbreaking would it be to sand off a masterpiece? Once the print runs finished.
They did it daily. Get rid of it. Render the next thing on. They sand it all down, and start all over again. Crazy.
It is. Yeah, it was interesting from that point because you work on the stone, so you kind of get attached to the work on the stone.
Yeah.
But in reality is that combination of the print, that's the final.
That's it right there. That's the final original piece of art.
Yeah.
And it is original, because it literally is an original piece. Each poster is an original piece. It's really kind of interesting.
Yeah.
And those posters now, like some of the early posters, like Kong, the King Kong one, that famous one where he's in a profile on the top of the building, that was all still with a 3-sheet, I think. Sometimes they'd be a single sheet. They call them 3 sheets. Then billboards, like big billboards, there would be like a 20-sheet. Each sheet was all rendered on a separate piece of stone. They all had to match, and then they cut them all off and plastered them on boards, on walls of buildings, advertising the circus coming to town.
I want to put this back around, because you're talking about the the prints and the movie posters and things like that. I'm going to bring this back to Blackboards for just
Yep.
a moment.
Back to the.
But you did you do a blackboard of Nightmare Alley? Or was
Yes.
that a painting?
No, there's a blackboard. That I
Okay,
did.
yeah.
Right. Nightmare Alley, of which Del Toro's film will be coming out. I understand in what, December. They're
Yeah,
reading
that's what
his
popped.
take.
I remember seeing your poster, and your poster is actually the first time, or your yeah, the poster Blackboard that you did is the first time I had heard of that movie, and then I just saw like snippets of it coming out, and that um,
It's a hell of a. I
it
mean,
was
for me,
great.
I saw that my father liked to go to movies at night. Serious, like he liked. I remember he'd come home from work and it'd be during the week sometimes. He'd want to go. My mother stayed home; she didn't want to go out, so he'd take Tim and me to the movies, and we saw stuff like Grapes of Wrath. I remember seeing The Kiss of Death with him. I remember, and then Nightmare Alley, and I was 8 years old. I think the film just came out. Tyrone Power, the great Tyrone Power. He was always playing the glamour boys in films, and
Okay.
he was wanted to break that mold. And this book had just come out, I think the year before, Nightmare Alley, and he optioned it to develop it for the studio, which they didn't want because it just totally destroyed his image as the pretty boy, kind of like romantic hero type sort of thing. Completely the opposite, the character that he played. And it's a really, I didn't know what the movie was about as a kid because it's a complex layering of issues. They had an adult kind of like recommended for adult logo on the posters,
Okay.
because it was about a whole bunch of stuff. Charlatanism is the big number one thing about it. Alcoholism, drugs, charlatanism and religion and psychiatry and all kinds of shit. I mean, it's really an intense film. But the geek, being the
Hmm.
geek, and I mean, not the geek that everybody thinks what a geek is now, but the original meaning of the word was this guy who had reached rock bottom, and the only job that he could get was in the sideshow of the circus, eating live chickens for the thrill of the crowd. And that's generally the film starts with that and it ends with that, with the principal character ending up in that role because of the way he lived his life. You know,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
it's really intense, very intense. And for years, I saw that film as a kid, stuck in my mind. It was always there in the back of my head, kind of like you just lived there. And then finally, maybe 15 years ago, way before access to the internet and everything, I kept asking Jean, maybe we should look and see if she could look it up and see if she could find. Finally, she found a copy of it, and I looked at it, and we watched it. And of course, now, I mean, ever since the 60s and anything goes on screen, it's a very mild film from a point of view of what's in the content. You know what I mean? The subject, and I thought, as I saw it again, I'm waiting for the scene where Tyrone Power is eating the live chickens. I'm waiting for that scene, and it never happens. And I think, holy crap! And I don't think it was cut. I'm sure it wasn't cut out. It was. I think that it was the film struck me so powerfully as a kid that I saw it in my mind all these years that that scene actually occurred. You know,
I
and
don't know. They may have cut it
I don't know, but it was quite.
because I remember there are several movies that I have seen um, in one format or another, and then like seeing it again later on, there things have been removed or cut, or
Yeah,
and sometimes they do it for time, you know, or
or
sometimes like
censorship, censorship
yeah,
reasons
censorship. If he's
back
eating
then.
like
Yeah.
like taking a bite, like, oh my god, it's too scandalous, we can't show that.
Yeah, well, the movie code was in place back in the day, back then when that movie was made. That didn't get abandoned to what,
Yeah,
68, I think. But the code was very stringent
yeah.
about what you couldn't put on, could and couldn't do on the screen, and it's amazing. But anyway, when I read that, I for years then I'm thinking, somebody should really make this film, you know, that remake it now in modern times. Not. I never thought about it. It should be updated. It should set me back in the day that it was, you know, in the 30s or 40s. But so you get that sideshow thing and all that stuff going. But by a contemporary director, and finally, when I did that poster, I was looking up my research for it, you know, to find photos and stuff, and I found that Guillermo del Toro was thinking about making it, and he did in fact shoot the whole thing. And I guess it's going to be released sometime soon.
Soon. It's coming out soon.
Yeah.
I have to grab a plug for my phone. My battery's going to die. So, what series did you do that Blackboard for?
What do you mean? What series?
Didn't you do a series of things like of movie posters and stuff like that? I think like
Oh,
What If?
yeah. Well, yeah. That was the Nightmare Alley one was. I was trying to do a series of posters. Gene suggested the idea, came up with the idea that
Okay,
if I was,
talk through this. Talk through this. I'll be back in like 2 seconds.
all right. Gene suggested the idea to me that I could paint posters of the movies that I loved as a kid or influenced me as a kid and only paint them as though I was an adult back then and I was hired to paint the posters for these movies. So I did like two. I did Kong and I did Creature from the Black Lagoon. And then the third one I did was a color of the Blackboard of Nightmare Alley. And with the intention that I would eventually paint that Nightmare Alley one. And of course, the movie was originally in black and white, and I did the Blackboard with it was red, white, and black, the same as this. And thinking, well, how would I paint the poster? Would I paint it that way with those limited colors, or would I paint it full color? Because even with the black and white movies, if you go back and look at the original poster painting for Nightmare Alley, the Tyrone Power Nightmare Alley, it's a color painting. They painted color paintings for all the black and white movies. You know, it was like kind of interesting. They were, you know, and of course the poster they did do for Nightmare Alley back in the day implied nothing about what was going on in the film. It was like staying away from the more controversial aspect of the movie, totally in the poster painting, because I think they wanted to not destroy Tyrone Power's image as the, you know, as the romantic lead, you know. So
Yes. Yeah. So okay. So where I was kind of going with that, I know that the at least for right now, the majority of your commissions uh, recently seem to be comic book related commissions with pinup and some pinups going on, right?
yep.
Whatever you've been focusing on. But do you ever do anything like that for commissions? Like uh, if somebody said, "Oh man, I really wanted a Greg Hildebrandt style poster for whatever."
No, that's a great idea. I mean, I would love to do that. Nobody's asked me of that yet, but that's
Okay.
cool. That would be an interesting thing to do. You know,
And,
it's like,
and I know I saw the other picture you put up was a like a old portrait, that you did. So you do commissions for really just about anything, right?
yeah, yeah, people's animals. I mean, I did, you know, a chiropractor. His wife wanted the.
Yeah, but
So
that's for friends. Right?
what?
That's for friends.
That's for friends, yeah. But still, I mean, we've done them for people too. We've done, you know, renderings of animals. Somebody's I wanted Super Dog. You know, what the hell's his name? I forget his name. And
That's true.
and I did, you know, Super Dog, and I've done other stuff like that. Yeah, so it doesn't. I mean, it depends on the. You know, I like to draw everything. I have no.
Yeah.
You know.
So yeah, but I mean, people we might have we have comic book fans, we have non-comic book fans that watch, fans that are fans of your TSO work,
Yep.
uh, all that stuff. Just trying to let people know that
Yeah.
you don't just do comic book,
No.
even though we're in like comic book mode for comic book convention season, um, and you take a lot of commissions from these conventions and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but just letting people who might be watching this know that it's not just about comic book characters all the time. You
Right.
most certainly will do comic, but it could really be anything that they want. Like,
Yeah.
someone talked about Sword of Shannara. Someone
Yeah.
else talked about Ursharak on there.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yep.
a Greg Hildebrandt movie poster idea.
Yeah, I would enjoy it immensely if they would ask me to keep redoing stuff on Ursharak, my own story that I did.
Yeah.
Back
Have you ever done an Ursharak commission?
No, we did. I did a charity fundraising thing with Walter Simonson. He did his Thor, and a combination of my Zyra, the Amazon princess, from my story Ursharak. We did that together.
Got you.
But I haven't done any commissions from that book at all. Wait a minute, what's this? Gene's showing me. Oh God, the statue fell. Oh God.
I said move the statue.
Oh my God. We had a beautiful statue outside. The wind blew it over. Broke the whole thing to
Oh
pieces.
no!
My Diana is gone, Keith.
Damn
She's
it.
gone.
No!
Ah!
Ah.
That sucks.
Gina reminded me. She said, I think it's best to move the statue, and I normally do with these storms, and I didn't move the damn thing. Ah, crap. Ah.
Well,
Anyway.
too late now, right?
Too late now.
Way too late.
Chris Cohen says more Ursharak. He'd love to see Ursharak made into a role-playing world setting. Ah, that's a cool idea.
People still ask me over the years whether or not it will ever be a movie, and that's, I can't answer that. I don't know.
Hopefully,
Whatever.
right?
That was a hell of a period and a challenge, and something to pull off back in the day.
Yeah, man. I dig the idea though of turning Ursharak into like a role playing game, like a Dungeons and Dragons type thing.
Yeah.
That'd be awesome.
I continued with various stories later on. Never got anywhere with them. They never got off the ground. A couple of continuations and stuff of that nature, and creating new characters and keeping some of the old ones and going into different dimensions with it and different areas with it. But so far it sits where it is. I've got too many other things going.
Did you do artwork for it or just writing?
Did some artwork for it too. Yeah.
Has anyone ever seen it?
I don't think so. Nope.
Ah.
Drawings, only drawing, no finished paintings or anything.
Yeah, no, I got you. That's concepts and things like that.
Yeah, that was a whole period that was quite phenomenal. Having never really aimed at Hollywood, and went for it whole hog, and through the William Morris agency, and just about pitched every major studio, and had interesting, great reactions from everybody. But they were afraid to try fantasy back then, because Star Wars everything had to be space. I remember people saying, "Well, yeah, if you could turn it into a space opera." I said, "Well, what the hell? You already got that. What am I going to do that for? This is old magic. This is not that." And they were afraid to tackle it because Conan was underway. The first one was Schwarzenegger, and they were all saying, "Well, let's wait till that comes out and see what that does. If that goes over." That's kind of like the word that we got from most of the big studios, and John Dykstra was on board, the original ILM, and the producer, special effects master of Battlestar Galactica on television. He was on board to work on the film. He was really psyched about it, and it didn't matter in the end. I thought that certainly such a thing would be critical to studios, but didn't matter to them. He said, we got lots of special effects people. They're a dime a dozen.
Yeah, Hollywood's interesting. That they love to rehash things.
Oh yeah, just sure fine. Well, when you're going to put that much money in it, you kind of like you know what I mean. You got to go for something that you think is bankable. It's like crazy, but it kind of Dykstra. Star Wars, the first Star Wars film had just come out, and we were pitching it, and I think Lucas had done it for what, $10 million? I think that was the figure I remember. And John Dykstra, on board with our story, Ursharak, was saying that he could do it for 30 million. And then we had a final showing of our. I got a mini movie to pitch it. I still have it that I put together. Spent a lot of time and money on it. And Joseph E. Levine looked at it at the William Morris Agency. He said it would cost 145 million to produce, and that kind of like sank it. It's sort of like it came to an end with the agency. That number was just a little too large, you know. So
That's completely reasonable nowadays.
oh yeah, well back then this was 1978.
Yeah, I know. I mean,
Somewhere in there,
maybe it's
79.
time. Maybe it's time for Ursharak
Or
to come
whatever
to
will be.
fruition.
Whatever will be, will be. The future's not ours
Yeah.
to see. Que sera, sera. Yeah, look at it, it's all fun. No, I'm involved with a bunch of other stuff now with heavy metal, which is we can talk about, not the particulars at the moment, but as we move along with these various projects. Huh? Gene said, please don't. So, but I am turned
Yeah.
on to this very much so. And I did a lot of covers with them back in the 80s with Gene licensed, 1982. I did my first Gene. We had just been working together for what, 2 years, 3 years. And that was one of the first big licensing jobs that she did was a cover a painting I did of a girl in a unicorn. And
Angel of the Gods? Is that
Angel
what
of the
that's called?
Gods, which we did it for Kirk, the Dutch poster company back in the day. And it was a huge success, the poster. And then Gene licensed it to Heavy Metal Magazine for their cover for their 1982, I think. I forgot what month. In November, I can't remember. 82 issue. And I'm kind of like suggesting the idea that I would like to do a 40-year anniversary painting of that subject again. Take the same material in the picture and paint another scene right now. What would I do with it, for next year?
Oh, that would be awesome. Hopefully that is something that can go
Yeah.
through. I'd like to
So
see that.
then we did, I think, about 8, 9 covers with them over the years. So various owners,
Yeah.
And now the new people are very excited and they're great. They're fantastic. And I'm enjoying the hell out of it, So
Awesome, man. That's good
that's a
to
cool
hear.
thing.
Yeah, it's good to hear that you're still very much, uh, active and excited about the work
Oh yeah.
and
I mean, I'm
doing.
no different now than I was when I was 14 or 4. I mean, that's the beauty of being an artist, you can keep at it as long as your health is there. And you keep
Well,
you keep it, and if you've got a gene, every artist needs a gene, of course, so that she makes all this doable and possible for me.
yeah,
We all know that. So, and, and
it's true. I'm going to throw out one more time here. We have today and tomorrow that we are still selling markdown Marvel comic art prints by Greg. All of them are signed by Greg, or will be before they ship out the door. They can be personalized. And if you look at the description of this video, um, you'll find the link where we're selling all of those. So it's not through Spiderwebart's direct website. We set up a little landing page specifically for some sales that are going to be coming up. So you can go there now and check out and look at those Marvel art prints and pick them up. The sale is going to be going on for, like I said, another day. And then we're going to be launching another sale coming up. And we got some really, really cool and exciting stuff that's going to be going up there. So sign up for our emails if you haven't, or pay attention to our Facebook page, Twitter account, Instagram account for all these announcements. We have some various things that are going to be happening and going up for sale. Not just comic book related, TSO related, pinup related, you name it. It's coming down the pipeline. All right, sorry about that, Greg. I just wanted
that's
to interject the business, making sure that we're interjecting the business in there
of course.
as we're chatting and having our fun. There, Chris. There, you know what? Okay, this guy Chris Cohen. He would love to get a print of cramming from your old
Oh,
Coca-Cola.
Coca-Cola.
Those
Ah,
prints.
boy. We have none. I
There,
mean, I probably have one set that I won't, let anybody, won't sell to anybody. But
yeah.
that was a crazy project. That was
So
interesting.
there's. I know that I've seen them, but I couldn't remember if
It
there
was
were
a
any
thing with
that were
Coca-Cola, and I
sold.
think Coca-Cola and what was it, Burger King, I think, did a thing where they had a giveaway of these big posters that were all fantasy themes but related to college.
Yeah.
You know, so there was some kind of a
It's like
college.
trolls playing football or something in one of
Right,
them,
exactly.
right?
With
And
a
the
beer. I
dragon
think
was cramming for its
they're
ass.
the football's a beer keg. They're running with the beer keg, and then we have the cramming was like a gargoyle. He's going through books, and then we have a freshman. What was it? What would they call it? I don't know what the college.
Orientation, freshman orientation.
Orientation, where the kids. There's a big guy with the ball and chain at the mask, and the president of the university is behind the desk, and the kids all cowering, and those kinds of things. It was fun. It was right after we did the first
Yeah.
Tolkien calendar, so we suddenly got
Oh yeah.
we got a fame for the Lord of the Rings with that first calendar, and then
Ask Jean if she has any for sale.
Jane,
I
Yes.
do we have any of the Coca-Cola posters for sale? No.
no. So yeah, you might be able to find them on eBay.
Yeah, you can go around. They came too. They had them in a big leather binder that they came with the tie.
Portfolio, right?
Yeah, portfolio kind of like thing. If you got the whole set of what 6 of them or something like that, I think. I can't remember exactly how many. Damn.
Yeah, they're
There's
fun
5.
images
She
though.
said there's 5 of them.
5 images.
Done
They're
so many.
very fun.
Done a lot of pictures. I can't remember all of them.
Thousands, thousands, and thousands, and thousands.
I remember my mother once. She said when we got graduated, finally got out of high school, she said, "You've produced more work than most people produce in their lifetime." Because that's all. That's what we did. We stayed at the. We were obsessed since we were little kids.
Yeah, you're probably the most prolific artist that I've ever heard of. I can't, and I'm all of them. Like across the board. I don't know of anybody, fine art world, commercial art world, whatever.
No, one year,
more prolific.
Tim and I counted. This was before the Lord of the Rings, before we got a global reputation. We started general illustration 1969, on up to the Rings in 76 calendar. And one year, somewhere in the middle there, I don't know, 1972, 3, 4, we counted up the amount of individual illustrations that we did in that one year. Everything from little spot illustrations, like there would be black and white that would appear in a Reader's Digest or something, or elsewhere, to full page illustrations, to readers, to textbooks, to you name it, blah blah. It was almost 1,000. It was 980 something in a year. So
In a year.
yeah. So you figure how many a day the average. What's the average per day? And that's the way we did it. And you almost had to do it for the amount of money that you were being paid to do these various jobs in order to make ends meet.
Yeah. No time to screw around.
No, there wasn't. And so I don't know. I lost track. I couldn't imagine how many images that I've. Hell, even now for a cover like this one I just did for heavy metal, I'll draw it like 25, 30 different ways. Just not even necessarily because I wasn't happy with the one I just did. I just wanted to keep exploring the subject, see what you can come up with. That's not what you just did, kind of like thing.
Yeah.
It
Yeah,
isn't.
gotcha.
It's. I don't know if one's better than the other. Or that isn't the issue. The issue is just having fun playing with it, exploring it. It's like you're an explorer kind of like thing, you know. You just
Yep.
want to see what happens, or what's around the next bend.
What's around the next bend? All right, Mr. Hildebrandt, that brings us to 5 o'clock, sir.
This is the next bend.
It is the next bend. As always, man, it's a pleasure talking with you. And even though we're not in the same room today, it is
Yep.
still an enjoyable experience.
Same here, man.
Thanks for everybody who's tuning in, watching. Thanks to all the people who are going to watch this later. We appreciate your time. Pardon me. We appreciate your comments. We just appreciate you enjoying Greg as an artist. Kiwi, if that's how we pronounce your name, sorry. No, Greg will not be at New York Comic Con this year.
No.
Hopefully next year.
Yeah, I mean, Gene and I are not really disposed to go out into a massive public event like that yet until the pandemic is more under control and more people are vaccinated and more people. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
You know.
Yep. So, all right. With that being said, if you like what we do, hit the like button, the subscribe button, the share button. We appreciate people who've been letting us know that they're sharing it around with their friends or in their Facebook groups. We truly, truly appreciate it. Greg is your national treasure, man. Your national treasure, Greg.
Is that what he is, Keith? A national
Well, you
treasure?
are too, Gene.
Well, I'm a national. Yeah, I'm a national treasure. Okay.
You're an
National treasure.
You're an international treasure.
International treasure. There you go. You're so cute, Keith. Okay. All right.
So, yeah, again, in the description for this video is the comic art prints that are on sale for another day. And again, stay tuned to all of our social channels and our email for upcoming convention special sales events. And so have a good night. And
Keith, I have a
we'll see you all next week.
question. Keith, I have a question. I have a question. Because I didn't see what you did in the end of the video here. So, did we have in there that they're on sale for $15 from $25 each, signed by Greg?
We do now.
Okay. You're so cute. Okay, and they can be personalized to you if you want them personalized by Greg. You know, to Tom, to Harry, to Adrian. Please don't ask for him to put to Adrian, love mom, because the personalization is coming from Greg.
Sometimes people are interesting. I guess the request isn't quite clear, or they don't. It's like, to my favorite girlfriend.
Right.
You know what I mean? To Greg Hildebrandt. No, that's not. You write that. I don't write that.
Right. You write that. Anyhow, okay. I just thought I'd ask. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you, Keith. We appreciate you.
All right. Good night.
Okay.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, everybody.
Thanks, Keith.
And this is